let's talk acids in wine. Most wine experts are going to tell you that wine is just basically grape juice with alcohol. Yeah, but that's very, very, very oversimplifying it. Did you actually know that besides water, alcohol, glycerol, phenols, residual sugar, aroma compounds, wine also contains acid, and not just one, but like 5 of them. All right, let's talk acids in wine. It's gonna get geeky and, well, sour. But honestly, just like a side note, I do not know why people are so often revolted by acidity in wine. I love it. We need to make acidity great again. Bruh. Anyway, acidity is actually very crucial in wine. If the wine lacks acidity, it's going to be flat and boring, and it can't improve with age. And if wine has acidity, it is going to be vibrant and fun, and it can live for a really long time. All right, let's break down all the 5 acids we have in most of our wines. Let's start with tartaric acid. It tastes sharp, and it lives mostly in green grape skins. Now, tartaric acid is actually a pretty unique acid, unique to our vine plant. Grapevines are actually one of the only plants that can make this acid. Most bacteria, they don't know how to eat tartaric acid, so they kind of just like stay away, and this really prevents wine from spoilage. I mean, that's why wine doesn't go bad so easily, because you have this tartaric acid that is produced by the grapevine and lives on the green skins, protecting it. It's like having a built-in protection, basically. Obviously, that makes the acid the favorite acid of the winemakers. I'm going ahead and say that. And then we have the malic acid. Yeah, it's not that well appreciated. It's actually super harsh, and it's also a bit unstable, and that is why many winemakers actually choose to get rid of it, and they let it convert into a more soft, into a more agreeable lactic acid. And this all happens in a process that we called a malolactic conversion or malolactic fermentation, which of course I'm going to explain to you later. If you think of malic acid, think of biting into the super tart green apple. If a Granny Smith apple is a name for you, this is it. This is your malic acid at its best. The harshest of them all, really. You know what? You don't even actually need to bite into an apple. I can just actually promise you right now, right here, if you close your eyes and you just imagine yourself biting into that very green apple, your mouth is gonna instantly start salivating. I know. I'm just looking at it and I'm already, I mean, there's this zing, do you know what I mean? This is what actually young wines usually have, especially, you know, cool climate whites. Like, you know, when you taste a Finger Lakes Riesling, or a Riesling from the Mosel region, or you have a Chardonnay from, let's say, Chablis, I mean, then you feel your gums tingle. That's malic. All right, so let us go on, and we will move on to the lactic acid. It is another acid that we have in wine, and it's actually the softest of them all. I am loving it. Lactic acid is actually super, super creamy, which is kind of counterintuitive, creamy acid, you know. But if you think of like yogurt or kefir or even milk, there's this acidity to it, you know, there's this smooth tang you can get. Gives you like a very smooth tang. Do you know what I mean? Now, lactic acid is actually not naturally present in wine. It is created as a result of the MLF, which I mentioned before, the malolactic fermentation or malolactic conversion. I think most of the people call it conversion now. So what happens is lactic bacteria is going to convert the harsh malic acid into this very soft lactic acid. And boom! Your wine just went from zippy to silky. And this is actually what gives Chardonnay its buttery texture, you know, this very smooth kind of touch. Or this also what makes red wine feel round and kind of mellow instead of super tangy. Yeah, it can be down to a red wine too. But also you actually need a very specific conditions for this conversion to take place, like temperature between 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. You need to have low levels with SO2, and historically the MLF would happen in spring when the temperatures in the cellar naturally rise, and so the MLF would just happen, naturally or spontaneously. But it's worth mentioning that it actually takes a long time. I mean, imagine you're harvesting your grapes in September-ish most of the time. Or let's put a specific year to it. You harvest your grapes in September 2020 and your malolactic is happening in March 2021, Some winemakers don't wait that long. They don't have, the time, the capability, the storage. So they kind of block the MLF, or instead nowadays, it's all the technology and stuff, you can just add a cultural bacteria to to kick off the MLF. And this is what we would call inoculation. So your wine can actually go through alcoholic and malolactic fermentations at the same time. So you don't need to wait. You accelerate, let's go. But anyway, malolactic conversion is actually super helpful, especially in the colder climates where grapes are very high in acidity, naturally very high in acidity. On the other hand, it might not be needed at all in the warmer climates where the winemakers on the contrary would struggle to get their grapes sufficient levels of acidity. But all in all, I would say it's pretty much a stylistic choice of the winemaker himself. Okay, this next one I need to mention is acetic acid. This is vinegar. Yeah. Okay, actually, you know what? In small doses, you can add a little something. I think it kind of like fun to have a note of balsamic vinegar in, say, your red wine, right? But on the other hand, in large numbers, not good. Not good at all. So basically what happens is, again, we have this bacteria, acetic acid bacteria, that is naturally present on the grape skins. And this bacteria, they love oxygen and booze. Alcohol. Well, yeah, alcohol. And they also need both to grow. So when they find alcohol and booze, they multiply and they convert alcohol into acetic acid, aka vinegar. And how can you prevent that from happening, you might ask, or not, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. You can basically just add SO2. It's very, very simple. You add a little bit of SO2. But some winemakers don't want to do that. They want to keep things raw and, real and, funky and, natural. You know where I'm going with it. These winemakers are also called the natural winemakers, or the winemakers of the natural wine. And they flirt with the edge, I would say. I mean, they don't add sulfates basically at all. And the sulfates are, in a way, wine's bodyguard, So yeah, all in all, acetic acid in wine, I mean, yeah, it's a little, sure. Yeah, interesting. Too much? Not so much. Better off pouring your wine over, a salad. Okay, there's this one last acidity that I haven't mentioned yet. It's a bit tricky. It's citric acid. It's not super common in wine unless it is actually added, but I think still it's worth a mention, worth a shout. So there's not naturally high amounts of citric acid in wine. It's more common as an additive, especially in like a bulk wine or a just wine. I mean, you would be surprised how many wines have acidity added. That's allowed. Many people don't know that. It's allowed to add acid basically into every wine, into even the most prestigious wine regions. You think Burgundy, Bordeaux, it's allowed, you can do it. But sometimes it's really, really intense and it makes the wine taste very unnatural, kind of like a cheap lemonade. Do you know what I mean? And that's it, that was our last acid. So yeah, there you go. This is what acids can do to wine. You know what, maybe that kind of empowered you to think more gently about acids in wine. It makes the wine appear a little leaner on the palate, a little lighter, more vivant, more vibrant. But excessive acid, it is going to make the wine taste too tart. But also on the other hand, the lack of acid is going to make the wine a bit more flabby. And if your wine is very, very sugary, very sweet, acidity is essential. It is going to provide that very necessary counterbalance, and it's going to prevent the wine from tasting cloying. It will lift the wine up. All right, I hope that was useful. Zooby zooby zoo. And I will see you soon. Bye.